Welcome to Flutter Teacher. In this session, we will talk about row widget. So without wasting time, let's get started. Row is the layout widget that displays its children in the horizontal array. Let me show some UI in order to understand the exact use of row. On the screen, we have total 3 buttons. Let's say the orange, blue and the green one. These 3 buttons are actually placed in the horizontal manner. So if you want to place your widget in such a format, all these widgets must be placed inside the row widget. We have simple Flutter application code written here that contains material app, and we have a scaffold as a home of material app. Inside the scaffold, I have simply placed the app bar. For the body of scaffold, let me use the widget called row. Now, whenever we use the widget called row, there is no property called child. In fact, it has the property called children. It means for row, we have to pass multiple widgets instead of passing the single widget. That's what the row is made for. So let me use property called children here. And for this specific row, what I will do, I will pass 3 different containers. So let me create my design here. So I will use here container. Let me specify the width as say 80 pixel. Let's say I will use a height of say 30 pixel, and let me pass some color. So in this case, I will pass say orange color here. So let me write here colors dot orange. Let me copy this code and paste 2 times. So the first time and the second time. Now in this case, instead of using this 30 height, let me use a height called 80 pixel, and for this I will use height of let's say 50 pixel, and here change the color to let's say blue, and let me make this color let's say the green. Let me save it, and you can see we'll get these 3 containers on the screen. Now let me explain the property called main axis alignment. For this, let me format the code well, and here we'll use property called main axis alignment. Let me write here main axis alignment. Basically, let me explain first what do you mean by main axis and what do you mean by cross axis for the row. Basically, in case of row, this specific axis that is called the horizontal axis, or you can say this is the x-axis, it's actually known as the main axis, and the another axis that is the y-axis, or you can say the vertical axis. So in case of row, this specific axis is called the cross axis. Using the property called main axis alignment, we can control the alignment of children in the main axis, that is in the horizontal, or let's say the x-axis. Value for this main axis is passed in the form of main axis alignment, and there are total 6 different options available. Let me use the option called start here. So when we use start, you can see all these 3 children, that is these 3 container, will be aligned at the starting of your x-axis, that is starting of your horizontal axis. Now instead of start, if I change it to end, and if I save, you can see these children are now aligned at the end. When I use say center here, then in this case your children will align in the center of x-axis. Now when we use space between, these children will try to have the space between them. When we use the option called let's say space around, then there will be equal space around each of this widget, that is each of this container. Let me explain what do you mean by space around. Let's say if this specific space, that is this specific gap, is called A, then there will be same gap on the side A. Then for this blue also there will be exactly same space of A, and here again we have the same space A, then here again same space A, and we have same space A at the right side of this green container. Let me use the property called space evenly. When we use the value called space evenly, all the children will have even space among them. That is, if this specific gap is A, then this specific gap again will be A, and this one again will be A, and last one will be the same, having the value called A. Let me change main axis alignment to start here. Now I will explain the property called text direction. So let me use here text direction. Basically, using text direction, we can control which children to display first. For this text direction, we have to pass a value in the form of say text direction. So let me pass the value in the form of LTR, that is from left to right. So as we have the value in the form of left to right, you can see we have this orange container, which is the first one. Obviously, it is at the starting. Then we have this blue container, and at the end we have this green container. And from this LTR, let me change it to say RTL, that is for right to left. When I save it, you can observe here, basically we got this green container at the first, then the blue, and the orange is at the end. So if you try to read it from the right to left direction, basically you will find that orange is at the right side from the first, then we have the blue, and then we have the green one. Let's understand the property called cross-axis alignment. So before that, let me comment out this one and let me change it to, let's say, the space evenly. Let me use the property called cross-axis alignment, and for this we have to pass value in the form of cross-axis alignment. So basically, cross-axis alignment allows us to control how your element, that is how the children has to be controlled in the cross-axis, that is in the specific row we can say in the form of y direction, or let's say in the y-axis. Let me use here cross-axis alignment dot start. Basically, when we use start, you can observe here all the children are aligned at the starting of cross-axis. That is, with respect to y-axis, they are aligned at the starting position. Now let me change it to end. You can see these containers are now aligned at the end with respect to cross-axis. And by default, we have the value called center. So you can see they are now aligned in the center with respect to cross-axis. Now we have one more option called stretch. So when we use stretch here, what it will do, it will try to have as much space available in the cross axis. When I save it, it will try to get much space available in the cross axis. Let me explain very important property called main axis size. For this, let me comment out this one and let me change this main axis alignment to say start. Let me save it. For understanding this main axis size property, let me wrap this row inside the container so that we can have some background color for the row that will allow us to understand what is basically the minimum size and the maximum size of the row. Let me wrap this row inside the container. So I will click on this container and let me use some color. So I will use here, let's say color. I will use here colors dot set gray here. Now you can observe here, this row has taken the entire width on the screen. Now instead of taking the entire width, or let's say instead of using this entire space available for main axis, what we can do, we can use the option called main axis size, and let me use here main axis size dot mean. So when we use mean, it means it will try to use as minimum space available in the main axis. When I save it, you can see it has got now the minimum space for the main axis. And when we use the max, which is of course the default one, this row will try to have the maximum size, that is the maximum possible width in the x-axis. Let me talk about very important point related to row. In case of row, we don't have a support for scrolling. It means when our container, that is when our children goes beyond the range, there is no option for scrolling. In fact, we'll get the error called overflow. So let me explain that one with example. So let me change the width to say 180 pixel. When I save it, you can see we'll get the error, that is it says the right overflow by the specific pixel. That's it for this video. See you guys in the next video. If you really like the way I'm explaining the concept, then don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell notification button to get my latest videos.